afternoon, everybody. Ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues, members of European Parliament and friends. First, I want to thank everyone for being here today. Thank you for speakers, to those who helped organize, and to all listening, giving their time. Your presence is very important, and it gives strength to the cause. We are here today not just as a doctor, leaders or advocates, but as a human beings who must speak out against one of the worst injustices of our time. In Gaza, as you can see, hospitals, medical staff are under direct attack. Clinics are destroyed. Ambulances are hit. And doctors, nurses, and paramedics, those who promised to save life, are themselves being killed. Patients, including children and elderly, are stuck in hospital without medicine, without electricity, or safe passage. The very place that should bring healing have turned to a place of fear. Healthcare is not a gift. It is a basic human right, should be protected by international law. But in Gaza, this right is being taken away. What we are seeing is not accident. It is a crime. It is planned destruction of people's ability to survive. In the face of despair, we must choose hope. In the face of silence, we must choose to speak. And in the face of injustice, we must choose to courage. Dear colleagues, thank you for being with us again today. And we are sorry about this technical problem. We will hear now to speak from Dr. al-Barghouthi. Dr. Mustafa al-Barghouthi, he's one of the Palestinian leaders, and he's a doctor. And he, unfortunately, due to his tight schedule, he couldn't make it. But he recorded a quick address to this meeting.
People, especially in Gaza today, are subjected to terrible three war crimes in parallel. The war crime of genocide, the war crime of collective punishment, including starvation, and the war crime of ethnic cleansing. Almost 70,000 people have been killed by the Israeli bombardment, including 20,000 children. No less than 160,000 have been injured, and many of them will die simply because there is no treatment for them, and no sufficient medications, and no sufficient personnel to take care of them. Among the people killed is no less than 1,650 medical doctors, nurses, and other health professionals. We need to stand up to this terrible massacre and this terrible crime that is happening in Gaza. People are not only bombarded with more than 140,000 tons of explosives, which is like 66 kilograms of explosives for each man, woman, and child. But more than that, they are deprived of water, deprived of food, and they are subjected to terrible diseases. Israel is practically conducting a biological warfare on the people of Gaza. That's why hundreds of thousands have been infected with so many diseases. More than that, vaccines are not reaching Gaza, and children could be suffering from the terrible outbreak of many dangerous diseases like poliomyelitis, measles, diphtheria, and other diseases. What we need, what we ask for, is to stop this terrible massacre, to stop this terrible war on Gaza. to stop the Israeli bombardment of Gaza and to allow an immediate ceasefire immediately. And what we ask for is an immediate supply of basic humanitarian needs to the people. Gaza needs at least 1,000 trucks of aid immediately, including food, medications, and medical material. What we need is the supply to surgical units and to hospitals with all the necessary medical equipment. What we need is to allow the access to vaccines in Gaza so that children would not get diseased from the outbreaks of infections. But most importantly, we need to stop this massacre. And that cannot happen only by providing aid. That cannot happen by only issuing statements of condemnation. The only thing that will stop this atrocity of the Israeli army and the Israeli fascist government is the imposition of sanctions immediately on Israel. It makes no sense that the world imposed no less than 11,000 sanctions on Russia in less than 2 months. And now it is reimposing sanctions on Iran, while not a single sanction has been imposed on Israel, which is conducting ethnic cleansing and occupation and oppression and apartheid for more than 77 years, and now is conducting the most terrible genocide and other war crimes in Gaza. We ask for your support, we ask for your help. Gaza cannot wait, and the people in Gaza cannot wait. They cannot wait for this Israeli campaign to continue. They cannot wait for the so many countries of the world to wake up and do what they should have done months ago, or maybe more than a year ago, to take immediate actions by immediately imposing sanctions on Israel and by forcing Israel to open all the roads, all the passages, so that the humanitarian aid, food, medical supplies can reach the people of Gaza. Thank you for your solidarity, and thank you for your wonderful work. And I hope we can together make a difference and make a change for the sake of the children of Gaza, for the sake of humanity, because what is slaughtered now in Gaza are not only the Palestinians, but the whole idea of international law, international humanitarian law, and the whole idea of respect for human rights in the 21st century. Thank you. Dear friends, thank you for attending today this very important.
Thank you very much, Dr. Mustafa. I would like to hand the floor to Mo Abbasi. She's a professional journalist, and she will introduce our panel. Thank you.
I hope this works. Okay, that's a good start. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Bonjour, hello, and good morning. Thank you for being here today. I'll just start by telling you a bit about myself. I'm a reporter, producer, and broadcast journalist, and I've worked with most mainstream news outlets during my career of the last 17 years. But I have to say, in my line of work, what we have witnessed over the last 23 months has been very humbling, not just for me, but I can also speak for my colleagues when I say that. I have been particularly humbled by the faith and resilience of the people of Gaza, the dignity that they have carried themselves with as they endure what the world is witnessing on our screens. Just last weekend, I secured an interview with Dr. Ahmed Al-Farah when he was in Nasser Hospital in the south, which I believe he's still there. Now, obviously, it's the largest partially functioning hospital in the south of Gaza at the moment. And as the Israeli army advances deeper into Gaza City in the north, residents are being pushed to the south. As we know, diseases are spreading and the numbers of injured are increasing by the day. Nasser Hospital will soon become even more overwhelmed with limited medical supplies or equipment. Dr. Farah told us during the interview on Sunday on Channel 4 News in the UK that in Gaza, nowhere is safe. You just have to choose how you want to die. At this very point, over 1 million people in the north are making that very choice. On a personal note, I would like to say how honoured I am to be among all of you here today. Doctors who have honoured your profession and giving up your personal time and dedicating it to helping the people of Gaza, taking time away from your families, from your jobs. I'm really in awe and I'm so inspired by what you do, so thank you for that. I also understand that you have all become journalists, de facto journalists, because you are the witnesses to what is happening in Gaza right now, and we rely upon you for your testimony, so it's very important to have you here, and everyone's presence here is very important to hear testimonies from the doctors here. Of course, we must also remember the Palestinian doctors who didn't leave their patient's side and have paid a very heavy price, some of whom have been killed and some who are languishing in Israeli jails without any charge. Dr. Hussam Abu Safir, as you may all know, was taken away 8 months ago, and we have still no news of his release. I would like to salute you all, and I thank you for being here today, and I thank you for...
At humanity's inability to stop what is a televised and crime by crime shown genocide, where we have watched the victims being bombed, killed, made sick by the destruction of their lived environment, and now starved in all combination of the last four. So I've been asked to talk about one new aspect of what is happening, which is the silencing of Palestinian voices and the Gaza by the Israeli army is part of a process that we have witnessed other parts of happening across the globe. The US administration's decision to ban wounded Palestinian children from having treatment in the United States, its decision yesterday to even ban a Vichy-esque body like the Palestine Authority from attending the United Nations General Assembly, the banning of doctors who, as the previous speaker said, have become the journalists and the witnesses to this crime, is an attempt to silence the Palestinians and to make them invisible again. The United States, the United Kingdom, France, Germany, Italy, all of whom are a critical part of the genocidal project, this international project that aims at killing and wiping out the Palestinians, do not want the world to hear the cries and the screams of the victims. And so a concerted and again international effort is taking place. Not only are doctors being prevented in increasing numbers, and organizations like Medical Aid for Palestinians being prevented in increasing numbers from going in, but we see that even those few countries that the wounded are being taken to, these wounded are being sent into hospitals that prevent access of both Palestinian communities to these wounded, as is the case in Italy, and journalists from having access to these wounded. And the same happens in France.
Dr. Abu Safir, could you tell us about your time in Gaza and why you've not been allowed back in?
So over the last few months, I have applied through two of the organizations to return to Gaza. And both times, the Israeli rejection, as is always the case, has come in the last 8 hours before we were supposed to set out. My time in Gaza for me now, looking back, you could see that this genocidal project, all of its components were being laid down from the very beginning. From the 17th of October, when Al-Ahli Baptist Hospital was bombed by an Israeli missile. From the beginning of October, when the water desalination plants were bombed, when the sewage treatment plants were bombed, when we saw in October 2023 the bakeries systematically being bombed by the Israelis, the warehouses of the United Nations agencies that had food and medication being bombed, all of this, now looking back, shows us that this genocidal project had its foundations being placed from the very beginning of the war. And we know from Keir Starmer's statements back in November 2023, when he said that he agreed with Israel's right to deny Palestinians water and food, that Western governments were in complete agreement with the genocidal intentions of this project, and that the current British Prime Minister is as complicit as members of the Israeli army and the Israeli government, as are members of the German government, both American administrations, President Macron, all of them at the very beginning of the war in October 2023 signed off on this genocidal project.
Am I right in assuming that you left, it was late 2023, I believe, when you left, am I right?
Yes.
Can you tell me what it's been like for you? Because you were there in the early stages. Can you talk us through the impact that it had on you and your colleagues in terms of psychologically, physically, the toll it takes, just so that people can understand the conditions in Gaza, especially in the early days?
From the very beginning of the war, the sheer scale of the killing was, having spent over 25 years doing war surgery in multiple wars, I'd never seen anything of that scale. And then in October, when we started seeing our colleagues being killed off, I mean, in the plastic surgery department, first we had Dr. Midhat Saydam, who was killed within half an hour of getting home. And then Dr. Hammam al-Louh, the nephrologist, was also killed. And we started seeing this pattern in which our colleagues, within half an hour of going to their homes, were being killed with their families. These homes were being targeted. And so you could see from the very beginning what the Israelis wanted to do, particularly with the health system, through wiping out a whole generation of doctors, nurses, medical technicians. And now we have around 1,600 who've been killed, all intentionally killed. The most recent is the head of pediatrics at Nasser Hospital, whose body was discovered a couple of days ago when his house was bombed. And so it was critical. It was critical for me as someone who'd been there early and come out early to try to show this genocidal project that was being built. And as so many after have discovered, that when you do bear witness, they come after you. The genocide enablement apparatus, the BBCs and the Daily Telegraphs and the Times and the medical establishment of the Royal Colleges and the General Medical Council are all parts of the power structure in the West that have been mobilized not just to protect Israel, but also to protect the genocidal project. And that's what we've seen. A concerted campaign, a McCarthyite concerted campaign against those who spoke out.
When was the last time you tried to go back in?
The day before yesterday.
I see. And how many times have you tried since you left?
This is the second time.
I see. And can I ask why you hadn't tried more often, or is it just that you know that they're going to turn you down?
There's a sense of guilt that I am taking the place, someone else's place, in a very small list that the Israelis are allowing in. So every time because what happens is the Israelis will send you the rejection within 8 hours. So the majority of my colleagues who get rejected are already in Jordan, in Amman, when they get rejected. And so I feel guilty that I'm taking someone's place. If I keep getting rejected, the organization that I'm going with doesn't have time to replace me.
I see. Thank you for sharing your insights. I'm just going to move on to your colleague here, Dr. Nick Maynard. First of all, you were in Gaza just about 4.5, 5 weeks ago, I believe, at Nasser Hospital?
Yes, just over 4 weeks, 5 weeks ago I left.
Could you tell us about what you saw? Because obviously you were there most recently. Dr. Abu Sitta was there at the start. We've come a long way from when Dr. Abu Sitta left. The circumstances have gotten so much worse. Could you tell us what you witnessed and what sort of patients you were treating in hospital?
Yeah, this was my third trip to Gaza since October 2020, and each trip has got worse, and each time I go I think I'm going to be prepared for what I'm going to see, but each time it's much worse, and I think the real difference this time was the profound malnutrition that I saw. And I'd seen that on previous trips, and we called it out on previous trips, but it was really devastating this time. We witnessed newborn babies dying of malnutrition, children dying of malnutrition, patients I operated on dying because of complications related to malnutrition. The staff were malnourished. I saw people I hadn't seen for a year, and I didn't recognise some of them because some of them had lost 30, 35 kilograms in weight. So the malnutrition and the hunger and the forced starvation, and the staff we work with, the Gazan staff, healthcare work, they were, they'd go home to their tents after their shift and they'd have no food for their families. Some of them even went off to the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation. I still struggle to use that term, I'm afraid, but the GHF food distribution sites. Some of them went off there between operations even to try and get food for their starving families. So the malnutrition, the deaths from that, the forced starvation was appalling, and that was the most striking thing.
What did your colleagues share about their experience with the GHF?
So I first realised what was going on at those sites, I think on my third day at Nasser back in June, when I was with my Gazan surgical colleagues. We were operating on a 12-year-old boy who died on the operating table because he'd been shot, and the bullet had transected his aorta, and he died on the operating table. And I was told that he had been shot at one of the GHF distribution sites, and a very good friend of mine worked in the ER there. I'd worked with him previously in Gaza at Al-Aqsa Hospital, and he told me about the pattern of shootings they had recorded coming from the GHF food distribution sites, and there was a sort of anatomical distribution of gunshot wounds according to the day almost. So one day he described there were 19, these are all young teenage boys, often 12, 13, 14, 15. They're sent to the GHF food distribution sites to get food because they're the fittest and they're the ones who can withstand the trauma of going there and the rioting that's going on there. And one day, Haytham told me there'd been 19 young teenage boys, all who had been shot in the head and neck. Another day they'd be coming in shot in the abdomen, another the chest, another day the legs, the arms. One day, at the beginning of my final week in Nasser, 4 young teenage boys came in, all of whom had been shot in the testicles. And the stories we're getting from the victims, from the families, and indeed from my Gazan healthcare colleagues who went there, was very much they were being shot by Israeli soldiers, sometimes by the quadcopter drones, but they were being targeted and it was the pattern we saw of the body part distribution on particular days was beyond coincidence, and it was clearly, it seemed to us like a game of target practice. Today we're going to go for the head, tomorrow we'll go for the chest, Saturday we'll go for the testicles. It just, I would not have believed it if I'd seen the evidence with my own eyes.
What do you think keeps people going, especially doctors, your colleagues?
I think the love of the Gazan people, the love of the Palestinians. I've been going since, as you know, since 2010, and for years I've been taking a group of doctors from Oxford teaching out there, and it's quite remarkable that every time, every new person I introduced to Gaza would fall in love with the place, would want to go back, and it's a very strong feature that people fall in love, particularly with the people there, and spending a month there. I mean, you're going to hear from Raoul, who spent 4 months there. I spent a month there, and I've had previous trips there. The Gazan healthcare workers, the Gazans, they are the most inspirational people, the most heroic people I've ever worked with, by a long, long way. I am in absolute awe of how they've coped. I was exhausted after a month there. They've been doing it for 23 months, and everyone has had close family, close friends killed. Everyone is starving, everyone is chronically ill, and yet they carry on heroically, utterly inspirational. So for me, it's the deep, deep love I have of the Gazan people, and some of them friends I've known for 15 years, and I consider as close as any friends I've got back home.
In terms of feeding families, I just wonder, how are their salaries allocated to them? Are they able to provide for their families with the work that they do? Because that's a whole other level of pressure as well.
So many of them have hardly been paid at all during their time. They do intermittently get some salaries, but it's very difficult to afford any of the food because there's very limited food available, and that which is available, the price increases have been extortionate because much of it is stolen by some of the gangs there, and who goes on the black market. So it's extremely difficult to get any food, and that food they can get is largely rice. I mean, we ate nothing but rice for the time we were there. We had 1 meal of rice a day, no fruit, no vegetables, virtually no protein, and we had a better diet than most of the people there. So they're hungry the whole time, and the cost of the food is extortionate. So it's extremely difficult for them to get food, which is why so many of them have lost such an enormous amount of weight.
It's very difficult circumstances to work in, especially within medicine, which is such an intense a sort of profession where you have to have the presence of mind. I would imagine that you would have seen colleagues faint or even...
Oh, absolutely. There's one colleague of mine, a Gazan surgeon who I've known for years, who on 3 occasions during the 4 weeks I was working with him, he was about to pass out during an operation, had to suddenly sit down and put his head between his legs because he was so hungry. And then he'd sort of get up and start working, and the same surgeon another day was operating with me, and someone came in to tell him his sister had just been killed in their tent in Al Mawasi, and he had to de-scrub, and it was awful. They're dealt with the most appalling blows recurrently throughout this whole, and you know, we're seeing this malnutrition, we're seeing these children dying. I remember there was a little girl called Zainab who was 7 months old. I'm not a paediatrician, but I had an 11-year-old girl who I'd done major surgery on for a bomb explosion. So I used to go and see her on the paediatric intensive care unit every day, 2 or 3 times a day. And on the paediatric ward next to her, on the malnutrition unit, was this little girl called Zainab who was 7 months old. And she looked like a newborn. She had every bone, every rib you could see. And she was being fed through a nasogastric tube with 10% dextrose, which is basically water with a bit of sugar in it and of no nutritional value at all. And they'd run out of formula feed. So they had no formula feed at that time. And she died 2 weeks into my stay there, little Zainab, who I used to go and see every day. She died 2 weeks into my stay because there was no formula feed. And at that same time, there were American doctors coming into Gaza, knowing there was a formula feed shortage, who had brought formula feed in their luggage to bring to little children like Zainab, only for every single bottle of formula feed to be taken out of their luggage by the Israeli border guard. So while Zainab and these other children were literally dying because there was no formula feed, the Israelis were taking the formula feed out of doctors' luggage so it could not be brought in.
What were you allowed to take in with you?
Stuff for your own personal use and nothing else. So I go in with map every time, and they're very strict with what we do take in. My previous trips I've come in through Rafah, and we could take in lots more then. But going in through Israel, as we have to go now, if they think anything you're taking is for anything other than personal use, they will take it away.
Thank you for sharing that. Dr. Raoul, you were with Dr. Maynard recently as well. You spent 5 months in Gaza, I understand.
Yes.
Could you tell us about what you saw and what sort of particular medicine aspect were you covering?
I was in Gaza twice. First time, 7th of October, I was there, but I couldn't work at the time. But the second time was now, automatically to July. I was in the emergency room and in the operating theaters as anesthesiologist. So I was mainly in the operating room, but many times in emergency.
And what sort of patients did you encounter, and what did you witness amongst the patients that came in?
Most of the patients, on a daily basis, several times a day, were civilians, young men, young women, children. In the first 2 months, explosions, shrapnels, perforations in the abdomen, in the chest, in the head, open skull fractures with gray matter out, amputations, burns. But at that time we used to have, because I was in Nasser in that time, and also in Jabalia, in the Indonesian hospital that has been attacked and they closed. But 2 mass casualties every 2-3 mass casualties per week. And we barely see gunshot wounds at that time. I'm talking about April and May. But by the end of May, especially the first week of June, Gaza Humanitarian Foundation opened. So I remember perfectly that every day we had mass casualty events, which means that the hospital is overwhelmed. The number of injured are way bigger than the capabilities of the hospital to take care of them. And I remember the first day that I thought this is the worst thing I ever seen in my life, like 40 injured at the same time, people on the floor, because we are talking about a department, emergency department, with 5 doctors, no? And maybe 6 nurses. So you can imagine 40 injured at the same time, no? And most of them, there were gunshot wounds in the head, in the chest, and I remember I worked in different places before, in Afghanistan, Yemen, Lebanon, but I've never seen something like that. But the day after, 60 injured, and then that week, then 80 injured. One day we received 200, barely 200 injured, and I think it was something like 60 killed, coming from the shooting of the Israeli army on the UN distribution site. But when the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation opened, and we start receiving mass casualties every day, sometimes twice a day. And also we receive on the daily basis, the bombings, especially in the night, over the tents of the displaced people. So Israelis bombing the humanitarian site, Mawasi. So it was completely, sometimes the operating rooms working 24/7, no stop, no stop, you know, and chaotic moments, no, because when you have that amount of injured in the emergency department, you cannot move inside the department because there is a lot of people on the floor and then the children on the floor. In a very bad condition, so you don't know exactly which one is bad or which one is better because so there is an alarm in the hospital and many people come to help, but it's a mess because the families, the relatives are entering, they are very nervous. You can see women crying, you can see the men on the floor, contracted like for emotional pain because maybe the children have been killed. Death corpse coming in, blood everywhere. You fall in the floor because you cannot move, you know. So it's a very difficult moment, and this is happening every day since the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation opened.
You've talked about the injuries, but what about the spread of disease? How vulnerable are people to the spread of disease, especially in hospitals? Because obviously we're used to hospitals being very clean, sterile environments, and obviously that's not the case in Gaza given the conditions.
Okay, maybe I'm not the right person because I only take care of the wounded, emergent trauma, so the people that are coming in a very bad condition, and also in the operation room. But I can say that according to my surgeon colleagues, the infections of the wounds are higher. There is a high rate of mortality because all the patients are immunodepressed because they are malnourished. So, and then we cannot follow the basic sterility rules because, for example, in the emergency department, the gloves are not, you cannot find always the gloves. You are cleaning things that in here or in my country you throw away because they are only one use. We use the syringe with the patients because they are, we have lethal anesthetics, so if we use one syringe with one patient, we use half full, we don't throw to we use that syringe with another patient. You know? And I don't know the number of infections of hepatitis, but what is a reality is that many patients are dying because of infections of the wounds.
Thank you for sharing that. I now move on to Dr. Ibrahim Yugin. I hope I pronounced that correctly. Yugin, is that correct? Yeah. Thank you. My Turkish pronunciation is not the best. So you are a pediatric surgery specialist, and I understand you entered Gaza in January this year, and you stayed till April. Can you tell us about your time there and what you saw?
Thank you so much. I am Professor Dr. Ibrahim Yugin. I entered Gaza through Palmet on January 28th. In that time, ceasefire, and I worked as a volunteer surgeon 65 days, more than 2 months, and I left April the 2nd. So I worked in Gaza during ceasefire, and then started March 17th war again. And so I have witnesses a lot of things in Gaza, for example, ceasefire, war, and starvation, and Ramadan, and Eid, and most of things. And also during ceasefire, I visited almost all location of the Gaza in north and also south. And in the beginning, I saw very huge migration from the south to north. Then at the end, I saw the migration of the north to south. It was very terrible migration.
Was it worse in the north than the south, from what you saw? Because you worked in all these various hospitals across the street.
After entry, this is why newly started, and so most of people is moving to from south to north.
At that time,
In that time. And also, I have visited most of hospital. For example, Shifa Hospital, Kemal Adwan Hospital, Indonesia Hospital, Beypanun Hospital, Al Arab Hospital also. And also I work in several hospitals in north and also south. Especially I work in the patient-friendly hospital. Because I am a pediatric surgeon, and patient-friendly hospital is especially for children and for gynecology and delivery patient. And in that hospital, I have operated several children with my colleagues. Also, in the hospital, there are some pediatric surgeons in my colleagues. Also, neonatal intensive care only here. But the patient-friendly hospital is very small hospital actually. We have only 2 operating rooms and very small intensive care and very small ICU. But most of people is site to site are there, and and also we have no CT in this hospital. CT is in the
CT scans. Yeah.
CT scan. Computer tomography is only in Al Arab Hospital and in the north Nasser Hospital.
So you have 2 doctors who've been to Gaza. We're going to start with Dr. Mohammed Al-Halabi. If you could tell us what your role was and when you were there and the experiences that you had.
So many thanks for this opportunity to be here. I'm Mohammed Halabi, a consultant in neurosurgery in Germany. I've been twice in Gaza through this war, first in March 24 and now on March 25th in this year, as the war really began. I want to I'm not here just a doctor. I'm also a witness of what I've seen there. I will talk about the conditions of the work there. It was a condition what you can never imagine in this year, in this time, to see, to work underneath without electricity, without equipment, without medications. Like what the colleagues in the first session also told us about the lack of medications, the lack of simple safety of these doctors. They leave the hospital to go to their tents with their families. They never know if they will come back. They ride on horses to go to their homes, or on this small middle-aged means of transport. It's a way that you will never imagine and accept to have in this time of development of what we are living in these days. Since I came back, when you look in your eyes of children, you remember the children which you see there. When you look on your patients, behandling them, and treating your patients, you think of the patients you couldn't treat there because you didn't have the equipment for that. I had the opportunity to re-establish the spine fixation in Shuhada Al-Aqsa Hospital. It's a small hospital in the middle of Gaza, which was never meant to be a tertiary, a big hospital. It was 200 beds, which now in war serving more than 800 beds. And in these days preparing itself to get the whole flood of people coming back from Gaza. In this hospital they had a small neurosurgical apartment which didn't make spine fixation because it had been no need to do that. But in the first visit, as still the borders to Egypt were open, we had the opportunity to get the instruments inside. And with these instruments, since March 24th, it's being operated like daily on such operations. One case which maybe some of you have heard about is the case of Noor. Noor is a 13 years old girl which came on the beginning of March 24th as I've been there, and she came with paraplegia. She didn't move her lower extremities, and we made an emergency operation. Then I left. I didn't have like any other news after that. But then as I came back to March 25th, I've seen her again. She came with her father, walking on her legs, with a small help to walk. And her father asked me if she can get children when she gets older. I told her yes, inshallah, it's nothing against that. And I was so happy. I made a couple of videos with her that something worked, that we need to go on. But then after I left Gaza, 2 days, her father called me and told me she passed away with a new airstrike. At that time, I just thought, like, I felt as one of my children is this girl. How she made 9 months effort of rehabilitation in very bad conditions, in tent, in no streets, no pedestrians, no place to walk. And after that, she was bound again. I thought it's like building a castle of sand on a stormy day on shore, on beach. It is nothing we can do. We will still do that, and we will continue working, all of us, and advise each doctor to go there, to make what he can. We are from the lucky group of person on this earth. I know that more than half or maybe 60% of this earth want to help there, but we could have. We had the opportunity to go there. That's why we will continue to do that. But at the same time, we'll continue to say, stop this war, stop this genocide, stop this catastrophic situation which is happening there. Thank you very much for hearing.
Thank you very much. Next we have Dr. Ahmed Kuzat.
Thank you for your time, and thank you for having me here. I just want to present myself a little bit. My name is Ahmed Kuzat. I'm a vascular surgeon practicing vascular surgery in Germany. I was born in Gaza, finished my medical school in Egypt, and 12 years ago I'm living in Germany. I had a chance to join the mission supported by Parliament and Rahma between April 2024 and May 2024. And I think that in the last session, my colleagues had discussed lots of the situation and give amazing details about what's been there. Maybe I can quickly say about my visit. We were the first group of people who had the chance to go to the north of Gaza at the time where Netzarim checkpoint separating the south and the north, and what's really now going on in the whole of Gaza was the last experiment of what's being done in the north of Gaza. We had our time in Kamal Adwan Hospital. It is also a small hospital that changed to do lots of big operation. I just want to speak about quick about that mission. I remember a young girl that had an ischemia in the lower limb. We had no equipment. I had to use a used equipment under totally unsterile situation. I remember a young guy, 19 years old, who was injured in his leg, and he refused to go to the south because he was afraid that he being arrested by the Israeli army, and he died from sepsis and infection. I remember also a colleague. He was a anesthetist who had diabetic foot, and his disease was a surgical one, but he decided to that we do for him the amputation and not to leave the north to the south. Those people will keep facing me, and each day I treat patients out in Germany. Personally, I want to share something that I think that many of the medical staff there, and also the medical people who are from Gaza who have family there. 10 days after I left Gaza, I lost my father. He is Dr. Muhammad, the pediatric surgeon, the first pediatric surgeon in Gaza. 30 years had the role on the head of department of pediatric surgery in Shef Hospital. My brother also is a dentist with big reputation. My uncle, who has a very important role in the UNRWA, and the three is a remarkable men. They simply try to serve the people in Gaza. They follow the rules of what the Israeli army is saying to go to the south, and they lost their life in the named safety region. So it's a personal thing that I have suffered also, but lots of people here, doctors who couldn't also visit Gaza in this area, but still having families that each day, the first thing you do each morning, check your emails, check your telegram, and you go give the meeting, do the operation, and you, in the back head you think about the people there, and it will be devastating when you see 20 or 30 missed calls, but because it's usually a very bad information you will receive. I think that these things have affected us, also the people who stay in or stay working in Europe or outside Gaza, and focusing each day that the question, what I am doing, how can I be disciplined, and we blame ourselves that we left Gaza at that time.
I'm so sorry for your loss. It must have been very difficult for you to leave. How did you come to terms with the fact that you had to leave?
I didn't thought our mission was that the first 2 months of the war, third month of the war, we didn't thought that it would continue 2 years, and we thought that it is possible that we can return again. Me and friend and Dr. Masri, we tried 2-3 times again to go to Gaza, but we got denial from the Israeli security areas. So
You hadn't anticipated it would get this bad.
Yeah.
I understand. Thank you so much for sharing that very difficult story. I now move to Dr. Mohammed Shalan.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Peace upon you. This is a precious word we are missing nowadays in this world. Especially, we can see some crazy leaders leading the world through the edge. I'm Mohammed Shalan. I'm orthopedic surgeon. I'm based in Ireland. I got the chance to enter Gaza twice. First time it was 2012. It was after this war. But this war, it was just 5 days, so the number of injuries was much less. But when I was there, I saw in the Shifa hospital many machines are not working because they are missing small parts to be replaced. And at the time, it was like golden time. And I got a chance also to enter March 2024. I shared before in other wars, like in Saudi-Yemen war, and I saw injuries, and I saw injuries among kids, among men, women. But this is the worst injuries I ever saw in my life. It is very, very complex. No patient came with single injury. All of them are multiple injuries, either by direct shooting or by bombing, by drones or airstrikes. It was Ramadan time, and I noticed the bombing is just around the iftar time. And I remember three girls, they are sisters, and they gathered to get their iftar, and they bombed in this time, and they came with worse injuries. Still, one of them is recovered, but still two of them still needs more treatment and advanced centers. As we know, there is no implants to fix in orthopedic surgery. We are dealing with metal to fix the bone, and this is the heaviest thing to carry. And if you try to carry, you are not allowed to bring anything inside Gaza. You go through checkpoints, like when we went through Sinai, it was just 5 checkpoints just in Sinai. And when you enter Gaza also, there is checkpoint at Rafah border. So it is very worse at the moment. I'm in contact with some of my colleagues there. They are lacking everything. They have only external fixator, these pins from outside. This is temporary. We use it to fix the bone for a few days until we make it ready for definitive fixation, for the final fixation. I saw many patients 6 and 9 months on X-ray fixators, and there is no signs of healing on the X-ray at all. And they are suffering from pain of the X-ray fixator because after some time it gets loose, get infected, so it causes pain for them, plus the pain from the fracture or the broken side. So it is quite hard actually, and this kind of injuries, in normal situation, it heals in 8 to 12 weeks at maximum, and the patient on his feet after like 4 to 6 weeks to start with bearing. But in Gaza also, the like mobilizing aid like crutches, frames, there is none there. If you ask patient to mobilize, how they can mobilize? He put his hands on his relatives to move him from the bed. I saw very bad bed sores because of this. The hospital at the time was overcrowded by evacuated people from, or displaced people from everywhere in Gaza, because it was the safe region. They said at the time, Rafah at the time wasn't invaded by IDF, and we saw rockets falling around the European hospital, which they said it is safe region. No region is safe in Gaza. The main focus in Gaza on the injured people only. I remember one of the medical students came to me and told me there is a patient who's 28 years of age, and he has severe back pain, and this pain going to his legs, and he's not able to mobilize. He has no injury. I told her, bring him to the hospital, and I saw him. We went a CT scan, and we were able to see a big disc in his back. And I spoke to the neurosurgeon in the hospital. They said, we are not free. We have loads of injuries. I told them, this patient is in severe pain and needs to be sorted. So I made some pressure on them, and they operated on him, and they took the disc out. On the next day, patient got great comfort after the removal of the disc. The patient was chronic disease there, or non-traumatic pain, are forgotten totally. None of them were seen. Like patient was osteoarthritis, they have pain, they have something like this. There is no chance, no place for them to be seen. And I think we saw many times how the hospitals targeted and bombed many times. I think this is the first time in our life to see hospitals bombed in purpose or intentionally, and they know this is a hospital, and they did this in purpose just to break down the healthcare system there. There is no enough antibiotics there. There is no enough analgesics there. There is no enough anesthetics there, and the patients there have fear. If you try to just to touch them, they have fear. They expecting to get much pain when you touch them, and we try to convince them. There is no psychotherapist. As we know, polytrauma patients need psychotherapy everywhere in the world, but those patients, they have lack of this speciality there to give them some emotional and psychological support. They get it only from reading the Holy Quran. This is only support for them. Plus the lack of food. As we know, food is essential. Any patient who has injury needs high protein diet. They are lacking this. When we were there, the only available food was rice, and we are under umbrella of international organization who supplied us with everything. But the only available food at the time is only rice. We lost weight when we were in Gaza. Imagine, we lived in Gaza like for 3 or 3.5 weeks, and we lost weight. How is the general or people there managing, and especially with the lack of food? And if you ask the patient to get some nice food to help for the healing, they will tell you from where can we get it. And I remember Dr. Riyad, he carried some protein bars and gave it to some of the patients, and it was like something very very smart gift for them or present for them. So it is quite hard, and I think the whole world should work to stop this kind of war, number one. Number two, to allow the medical missions to enter Gaza. I tried twice to enter Gaza. I traveled to Jordan, as Dr. Abu Sinna said. Well, I traveled to Jordan in January and in March, and just a few hours before the trip, they cancelled our entrance. And we are not sure this is something personal or something general, but what I hear is something general, because they cancelled many doctors. And if you look to the list, I got a chance to see the list who entered Gaza. Majority of them are not surgical doctors. And what Gazan people they need surgical doctors. For the healthcare workers there in Gaza, they are under great pressure. Imagine your family living in a tent, displaced from one place to another. They are unsafe, and you have to go to the hospital to work and to focus in your work. It is a very critical situation for doctors there, and also apart from this, they are not getting salary for their family to survive. But they were working, they were keen to attend, they were keen and they exhausted, and we asked them to get rest, but they didn't leave us alone. They stayed with us. So I forward my words to the politicians to make great pressure on the Israeli to stop this crazy war. Because I remember word from President Sadat when he said, the war is to bring the people to the table to get a solution. There's no war can get solution unless they have the intention to eradicate the whole people in Gaza, and hopefully this will never happen at all, because I saw people there, they are not keen to leave Gaza, even they are at high risk of being killed or injured. And thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I now turn to Dr. Qasim Al-Masri.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much to my colleagues here, and thank you very much for all the colleagues who talked today. It is a very personal issue to be here, not only a professional, being a doctor, being a pediatrician in the field of intensive care, pediatric cardiology and neonatology, and I had the honor and the privilege to go with great colleagues to Gaza in April 24, and we were part of the first team who managed to go to the north of Gaza at that time, and we had also the honor to work with Dr. Hussam Abu Safiya, who is beside other 69 medical workers are forcibly disappeared since 8 months, not knowing anything about their fate and their state of mind and body. But I'm also here in my born position as a Palestinian from Gaza and from Beit Hanun, a city that does not exist since a while now, as a son, as a brother, as a cousin, as a colleague of so many Palestinian doctors who paid one of the highest prices in modern war history. And they are still standing. It is always inspiring, so I would like to use the chance to honor all of them, the ones who stood in the hospitals after they have been destroyed and went to other places and still fighting and holding the fire in the hand and still being there for their own patients till their own annihilation or execution. And in the time we spent in North Gaza, it was, as I said, in April 24, which is more than 1 year ago. Since then, I already tried 7 times to go back to Gaza and got always rejected with the Israeli racist rule that no Palestinians, no doctors with Palestinian roots are allowed to enter the Gaza Strip. And Palestinian roots were defined as if your grandfather, grandmother were born on the historic land of Palestine, you are automatically excluded from joining any medical mission to Gaza, which led to the fact that all of, like I would say that mainly 50% of medical volunteers are of Palestinian origin, which means we are excluding primarily 50% of the volunteers who could help to support the already struggling medical system in Gaza before the 7th of October. And this time we were in the north of Gaza. At that time there were only 450,000 Palestinians who stayed there, and the rest had to leave, not for the first time, including my family who has been displaced for 5 times, and yesterday I had a severe talk with them, telling me that they were high probably obliged again to leave Gaza City and to go somewhere else. And in this time, I think our position as doctors, or our main role, yes, in that time, was that the people felt less lonely. Not only the medical care we tried to approve or to provide, but that the people, after 8 months of not seeing one single medical mission entering the north of Gaza, it was a huge relief for them to see finally, after 8 months, these people, and some of them were from there. So it was our role not only to do this medical work, but to try to talk to people as much as it was necessary. At that time, we did not have that media echo around the idea of malnutrition and hunger or starvation as a method of war that is actually being used since day one in Gaza, and it was like openly talked about through Israeli officials. And in the time we spent there, in my position as a pediatric intensive care specialist, I saw children die every 12 hours on the consequences of malnutrition and having severe, weak immune system, which did not enable them to fight those kind of infections, specifically under the catastrophic hygienic standards which had to be there based on the displacement and the destruction of all areas. So the other story I would like to tell is the story of Faiz. Faiz was a 3 months old baby who Dr. Hussam and I treated primarily. He was born with a congenital cyst which obliterated his left lung completely, and he was on the mechanical ventilation, and without any operation he would have no chance to survive. So it took us 1 whole week to stabilize him through intensive care measurements to make him an operation possible, which was done by Dr. Hussam. He can maybe talk later about it. And Faiz was extubated, and he was breathing alone 3 days later, and we got good news and a video to hear his voice for the first time. 6 weeks later, we saw him in the arm of his father because he died of malnutrition in a severe body condition. And the thing is, we always talk, or we have been talking so much about the so-called direct genocide, which is being unfolding since almost 2 years. The direct genocide through the genocidal war machine, through jets, bombs, snipers, and drones. But what we don't talk enough about is the indirect genocide, which is happening and unfolding since day one by the destruction of the medical care system, by killing 1,600 medical staff members, by stopping doctors from volunteering and going to Gaza to maximize the number of victims. In an estimated number from 1 year ago, it was in September 24, published in The Guardian, the indirect victims of the genocidal war against the medical care system, a number of 338,000 Palestinians lost their lives in the consequences of the genocidal war, which means we are talking here about 15.2% of the population in Gaza, and this is already 1 year ago. Since then, we have less doctors. Since then, we have less hospitals. Since then, we have less medications. Since then, we have less nutrition, and since then, starvation was used to its maximum as a method of war and a method of trying to oblige Palestinians in Gaza to leave and to maximize the tragedy through the component of ethnic cleansing. So I don't have much to add to the medical happenings. I would like to say that I actually have no faith in political institutions and political parties. I have no clue about the outcome even of this talk, but I hope that my words will at least be heard by the people I love in Gaza, and I hope that this will make them feel less lonely. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. And finally, I turn to you, Dr. Hussam Abtawi.
Assalamu alaikum. Thank you for having me and giving us the opportunity to report from our experience in Gaza.
Ethnic purification. This is pogrom. This is apartheid. This is the term, I think, the correct term to call what is happening in Gaza. But call it a war. It's really.
It's a war in Gaza. It's a war in Gaza. It's not a war between two powers. It's a war on Gaza. Yes. Thank you very much. Is there any, just because we are running very short in time, if there's a short.
My name is Ahmed Krasini. I am also an independent journalist. So the question is about actions and demanded actions. Actually, when we are talking about other crimes like prisoners, for example, we talk also about actions and public actions on the streets. But when we talk about doctors, it's a little bit difficult. There is no misinformation. We have all of information in media, on the streets, for the politics, and everybody knows about what happens in Gaza. But actually now, how people, I hope that you will add it to your conclusions, how to send a letter to the public, to people, how they can help, for example, doctors, or hospitals in Gaza, how politicians can act also. So give us like some map road to how to help these people, and not only to let this speech to politicians, decision makers, or to other colleagues as doctors. Thank you.
Go ahead, Dr.
Thank you. I mean, more of this, and I do believe this works. It's very slow, and it's of course much too slow, and our governments are letting Israel get away with this genocide and this ethnic cleansing. But this sort of pressure does work, albeit very slowly and not quickly enough. Certainly in my country, in the UK, the language coming out of our government is changing. Now, one can speculate about why, and I don't think for a minute it's because they've suddenly started caring. The senior politicians, both in Europe and in the UK, will not be motivated by morality. They won't be motivated by care for the Gazans who are being killed. They'll be motivated by how it will impact on them, how it will impact on them in terms of votes and their legacy and how they will be judged in the future. That is what will motivate them, and that is the reason why this sort of pressure, this relentless pressure, is slowly having an impact. It's far too slow, and it won't stop what's happening at the moment, but it is having an impact, and I think we need to carry on doing more of the same and putting our politicians into a position where they start worrying about their votes, start worrying about their legacy, start worrying about how they will be judged in history. That is the way to turn them. And it is slowly working, but sadly, far too slowly.
Any other question? Just go ahead.
Hi, my name is Hannah. I'm a psychology student in Germany. And thank you, first of all, for all your testimonies. My question was regarding the current situation in Gaza and the genocide, which is obviously ongoing. My question is, and obvious regarding your testimonies, that the wounded patients, they've seen it, and we have heard of all the testimonies, you know, the atrocities going on. My question is, what are the long-term consequences for the patients in Palestine, not just physiologically, but also psychologically, and how can we maybe conquer that? Maybe how can we help them, I don't know, in the next years, in the next months? How?
Thank you very much, Dr. Hala. This is a really very important question, and I think we need a lecture to answer this question. However, Dr. Hala, if you can comment on that.
Regarding the psychological effect of this war, it is a psychological effect for all the people living there, for the patients, for their parents, for the displaced, all the patients, for the children who didn't war anything, who didn't see the life without war. Now it's 2 years. Some children are getting older. War started 5 years old. They are now 7 years old or 8 years old, and they didn't see a normal life. I think it's a psychological effect on the whole world. We are all changing. Who went there, who watched the news. I'm a little optimistic that this change will make a motive for the people to change their way of thinking, to change their acts, to change what they do, what is right and what is wrong, and what we accepted for years as acceptable, seeing people dying from hunger in Africa or in Asia. Other also problems which were just touched and not solved. Maybe is it a change that will be on the long term, but now in the meantime it is something that we cannot wait for the long term changes. People are dying now. We need to define the responsible person in our declaration. I hope it will be inside, and when we define this, because he is this part, Israel, the government which is responsible for this occupation, need to be responsible for food, for medication, for the entry of people. We can talk 100 years, but if they didn't let us inside, there will not be any solution. That's why psychologically there's a lot of programs working now on with the government there, with the people, with the medical staff. And that's the other problem, that cooperation with medical staff in Gaza is in European law questionable, and you may be followed just for helping people to live. That's a political problem that need to be solved. I hope this it's not a show of declaration of Palestine state in the next months. It is something to deal with that the people there are people, they need to be helped, and it's not a crime to stand with Palestine.
Yeah, one of the benefits of the medical missions, it goes from the world, and the local Gazan people, they see different nationalities coming to help them. This gives them some psychological relief, and they feel they are not alone. Some people are thinking about them, some people trying to reach them, some people trying to help them. And I heard from the kids, when usually we meet the kids in the morning and in the evening on our way to the hospital. But they said, we love Egypt, we love Ireland, we love this country. So they don't have any hate to the world, and they feel the whole world supporting them from the faces of the people who goes to Gaza and trying to help. Especially it is multinational. It is not from one country. This is big support for them. But unfortunately, we are not allowed to go there. Like my colleagues in my country, in Ireland, they are free to travel to UK, and they free to travel anytime, just to book the ticket and go to there and give the help. But in Gaza, it is quite complicated. It is not. It is different from any part in the world.
Thank you very much. To be honest, if I want to add something, we get the support from Gaza people. I'm sure we come across Mataglegish. They are the resilient people who are giving us more support. They are the strong people. But of course, this doesn't mean that we shouldn't address what Hala said, because I think they need, a programs. The whole nation there now need a program. Just one last question, and then we want to conclude. If there's any more, one last question. If there's no question, yes, go ahead, please.
I'm Wahbeh, working as a doctor in the Netherlands.
Fine.
And my question is something I'm struggling with myself. I am with the cause, but I cannot find the courage to ever go to Gaza. How did you find courage within yourself to go there?
We've all got slightly different but similar stories. I've been going to Gaza for 15 years, and I think I said it earlier. It's the people there. I've grown to love over the years, and it's not in any way to understate the risks of going, because it's a very dangerous place to go. And of course, everyone who goes there does understand the risks, but it's a balance of emotions. It's a balance of risk versus benefit with all decisions we make. And for me personally, going to show, as you said, my friend said, show solidarity with our Gazan colleagues, to see my friends, to support my friends there, outweighs, for me personally, any risk of going there. And I've heard several other speakers talk about the privilege of going there, and I think it's one of the great privileges of my life to be in a position to be able to go out there and help the Gazans. And I will, and even though one does feel at risk there, of course one does, and there's some horrible things you see. For me, the personal benefits are massive, because it's so important to help my Gazan friends and colleagues.
Thank you very much, Dr.
For myself, it is painful to see people who need help, and you can do something for them, and you stay. You have to move and do some help for them. As I mentioned, I went to Gaza 2012. So once you are in Gaza, you will love Gaza, and your heart will be there. And I think like he said this, your heart will be there. You have great link with people there. They are lovely, they are wonderful, and they are educated. There is war, the life is very tight, and there is no teaching tools like everywhere in the world. In spite of this, they are fighting to learn. They are fighting to upgrade themselves. I get many texts from, in the morning, I got a text from one of the medical students trying to find place to study even remotely. Their university is destroyed, and it was the first buildings destroyed.
We are talking about non-medical, not medical, because we are teaching the medical.
Yeah. But I'm speaking about the medical because I am in touch with the medical students. They are trying to progress. They are trying to finish the college and to be ready to work and help their local people. So it is painful to stay and just watch. Once you have a chance to go.
Thank you, Dr. Shalan. I just really would like to thank you all for attending today, and I just wanted to tell you that as a conclusion to what you heard, we have formulated a declaration. We call it Brussels Declaration.
And the Brussels Declaration is a call to action. It asks for urgent protection of the hospital and medical workers, and it demands accountability for those who attack them. Without accountability, the violence will continue. Without protection, more lives will be lost. Today, we are not only asking for sympathy, we are asking for action. We call on governments and international bodies to protect medical services. We call for independent investigation into attacks on healthcare. And we call on each of you, people of the world, to raise your voice and demand justice. By signing and sharing the petition which we make for this declaration, you will join a movement to protect humanity itself. Let us stand together to make sure hospital return to being a place for healing, not a target of war. I would like to ask my colleague Professor Lubani just to read that declaration quickly, and this declaration will be available for everybody to sign it. And I'm sure you will do your best to spread it to the colleagues and friends.
Thank you very much, Dr. Mashaka. So the Brussels Declaration states that we doctors and health workers, together with representatives of healthcare unions, medical associations and institutions from around the world, address this declaration to the international community. We act out of an ethical and professional duty to respond to systematic attacks on Gaza's health system, assaults that endanger life and violate international humanitarian law. What follows sets out in order the principles that guide us, the laws being violated, the reality on the ground, the actions now required, and a global appeal to protect healthcare in conflict. Number one, the fundamental principles: attacks on hospitals, health facilities, medical staff, and the obstruction of medicines and supplies are a flagrant breaches of medical ethics and humanitarian law. Gaza represents a stark denial of the right to health during armed conflict, requiring urgent international action to safeguard humanitarian and legal standards. Protection of medical personnel, ambulance services, mobile surgical units, and teaching hospitals is a binding obligation under international humanitarian law. Unhindered access to essential medicines and equipment, including oxygen, ventilators, and surgical supplies, is indispensable for saving lives. Number two, the violated international legal framework. The Fourth Geneva Convention, 1949, Article 18, protection for hospitals and medical staff. Additional Protocol 1, 1977, prohibition of attacks on medical units, affirmation of health workers' immunity. Universal Declaration of Human Rights, 1948, and ICESCR, 1966, the right to health without discrimination. Convention on the Prevention of Genocide, 1948, and Rome Statute of the ICC, 1998. Targeting civilians and medical facilities constitutes war crimes. International Court of Justice orders 2024-2025 require unimpeded humanitarian aid access to Gaza. Ongoing violations incur individual criminal responsibility for those who target medical facilities or obstruct access to healthcare. Number three, current humanitarian and health situation. The destruction of hospitals, the arbitrary detention of medical personnel, and the critical medicine shortages have created a deepening health catastrophe. Children, older people, and persons with disabilities are disproportionately affected. Disrupted medical supply chains endanger urgent surgical, maternal, chronic, and long-term care. Health workers operate under extreme conditions, exhausted, traumatized, and at constant risk. This Brussels Declaration calls for: 1. Immediately halting all attacks on hospitals, health facilities, and medical personnel. Release all detained healthcare workers. 3. remove all barriers to the entry and delivery of essential medicines, equipment, and supplies. 4. Provide independent, adequate protection for medical staff, including ambulance services, mobile surgical units, and teaching hospitals. 5. Deliver urgent international assistance for the reconstruction of destroyed health facilities. 6. Establish an independent international investigation to ensure accountability for grave violations. 7. Preserve and strengthen essential health.
But not any moving or hand or leg. And every time I talk with him and I ask to him كيف حالك? How are you? And he said to me all of time أنا بخير الحمد لله. You know, I am fine and thanks God. And no children is free from bumping or others. No, I saw.
Do you know
my
what happened
eyes.
to him? Do you know what happened to him? Who looked after him after he left hospital? The patient you mentioned, do you know what happened to him? Who looked after him after he left hospital?
I don't know because he had to mechanical ventilation, but in the form, no permanent, no electric, and also he needs aspiration, but no electric. One day, Dr. Hisham found with mechanical aspiration without electric, and you see to me, you're thinking only you are smart, but also I am smart. And most of Gaza's people, Gaza's man, woman, is very smart and thinking. For example, they need something, he can create. For example, no electric, some electrical device, he can make electric, and also water on the ground, he can take with some electric system. And also, for example, on the car, most of car damaged, and there has no glasses, but all people can cover with nylon. Some of them home glasses. And you know, this war is not the first war for Gaza. Gaza is fighting during more than 80 years, and they know most of it, and they believe. And I know very well, and I believe that Gaza will win. Inshallah.
Thank you, Dr. Rico. I now turn to Dr. Rashid. You were in Gaza in February to March last year. Can you tell us about the patients that you dealt with?
First of all, thank you so much for the invitation. It's an honor to be here. I'm here for very, very risky patients, particularly explosive injuries that are so seldom to see them, even more injury box or published in certain journals, particularly on editor-in-chief or trauma journal, the Journal for Defensive Trauma. We've never seen that. So I was astonished with the magnitude of injuries, the mechanism of injuries that is attached among very strongly, and this was devastating. I went forward what the type of injuries command, the patient's command. So you see that we open the chest and abdomen, and you see absolutely injuries we've never seen it in any textbook in any journal. So this was very specific to these patients. The extension and magnitude of the injuries.
And you're a heart surgeon, so you were dealing with
Right.
cardiovascular surgeries.
Cardiovascular, thoracic, and even trauma in general, so even the abdomen. So these injuries were devastating, almost non-survivable injuries.
And what sort of age groups did you encounter?
The majority were children.
What percentage would you say were children?
I have no numbers exactly, but the majority were children. I suppose, probably, I don't know, but I have no numbers, but I think it is over 80%.
What do you learn about the resilience of the people of Gaza?
It's amazing. It's amazing.
In your career, you're a very experienced surgeon, but from what you're seeing, do you feel that speaking out about what's happening is making a difference?
Absolutely. We should do that because what we see is not trauma. I dealt with the trauma for so many years and reviewed many international journals in trauma. We usually see cases from war military cases and the civilian cases, particularly in Brazil and Mexico, that I've been involved with so much there for education of our colleagues there. So I really astonished of the magnitude of injuries. And you cannot describe them because it's not only one organ. I never seen a single patient in Gaza in this short time and a single organ injury.
So the question is, you're obviously very experienced, and you go there and you help, and I'm sure that obviously they're very grateful. But as for Palestinian doctors themselves, as we know, over 1,600 have been killed. So the elder, more seasoned surgeons have died in the process. And the question is, how do they cope when you leave?
I really don't know.
It's devastating to think that if you didn't go, if none of you went, how they would cope, because the doctors are dying literally every other day. We're hearing about doctors dying.
It is very tragic to know the facts. The facts are, we see the people are dying, doctors are dying, our assistants in the surgery are dying, all are dying. So it should be stopped. This is only one.
What hope do you have that it will stop?
I think it is goes to the politicians. This is the point, because we doctors, we just looks like looks like a car. I just wanted to fix the car. This is the only thing I wanted to do in the body. But to stop that, how can I stop about approximately to 6 Hiroshima bombs on this little strip? I cannot imagine how can I, as a single surgeon, can do that.
What sort of toll has it taken on you personally, witnessing what you have witnessed?
Excuse me?
How has it affected you, what you have seen?
It is, yes, it is, it takes you as a human being, as a doctor, and as a one human being in the in this planet, you see why this is happening. You cannot understand what the reason to do that. For such mechanism, for example, one is living in a tent. It is just papers over clothes. Why I send a bomb of 1,000 ton explosives? I don't understand that. This is crazy. And then the lesions we see, never described anywhere else. You cannot find that.
Unprecedented.
Never.
Well, we live in hope, and that's part of the reason that we're here at the EU, in Brussels, in this very important city, to try and influence change with your testimony. So hopefully the message will go through. That's what we hope. But thank you very much to all of you for sharing your testimonies and for taking the time to especially travel here to let our audience know, and for this special event to shed a light on the tragedies that you have witnessed and the frustration, no doubt, that you've all felt. So please give a round of applause to the panel here.
Thank you very much again for everybody. We want to give you just like 10 minutes to stretch your legs and grab a coffee if you want. We are running late, so please just come back before 1:30. Thank you.
About him, that was a baby about 2 months or even younger. He was born with a congenital problem. It was like a very big cyst on his left side, beside his lung, and it was affecting the whole lung. That the lung was not expanding anymore. It was a very big cyst in the mediastinum. And through a very complicated workup, in the intensive station with Dr. Qasim, he had a lot to do to stabilize the patient and to stabilize the baby. We had attempted to operate the child 2 times. The first time was not successful because of his bad condition, and we have to postpone the operation until our return from the north. That was in European hospital. At the end, we were able to perform the operation, and we could resect the whole cyst, and the whole lung was expanding again, and he was improving, and we were getting his information from after we left. And he was discharged from the intensive station. He was in very good condition. And after that, we got, unfortunately, we got the very shocking information that he was died because of malnutrition. That was also streamed in Jazeera. I think every one of us could see it, could see the baby, the Faiz, and he was lately died because of the malnutrition. Despite that, the operation and all of our work was actually done without any benefit from it. The second spot, I have to concentrate about the incidentally targeting of the children. We have seen in Kamal Adwan Hospital many children from the age from 7 to 15 years who were targeting with bullets in the chest. We could be able to document 2 of these patients, and we could be able to make photos from them and to document the situation. And we done also 2 major complicated operations to resect and to extract these bullets from their chest. And it was wondering how can and the problem, the people in Gaza, they have really the ability to differentiate between the different type of bullets. They could be able to say this is a bullet from a drone or a bullet from a machine gun or something like that. And these bullets was from a drone, which is operating. It is like a video game operated from someone who is targeting the bullet to a specific target. And it was really wondering how could be a child shot with 1 shot in his chest, and he was in a very bad situation and in very critical situation, and we could, alhamdulillah, 2 children of them saved their life through a very complicated operation, and we could document out 2 of these cases. The third thing, which is really left a very bad memories by me, we used to save every patient and to try to live with every patient and to do our best to save his life. But in Gaza, the situation was something else. Because after every airstrike, we received a mass of patients, of injured patients. We were in the ground. We couldn't be able to really take care of everyone as it should be, as we used to do. I personally, I have left and I have an experience who I couldn't, and there were two girls who were really in bad conditions and they were going to die, but I didn't try because I have told, please leave them and go to the next, because these patients or these children, they have a very bad chance to survive, and we have to take care of the others. Although if we could do and if we could manage and if we got our best care, we could manage and to save these children. And I still have the memories of these two girls who really passed on the, unfortunately passed away without being able to do anything. I have learned there to do and to be and to manage like that. The patients who have little chance to survive, leave them and go to the next. And this is something which we are not used to. The fourth and last thing, and which I have to report about it, it is a very emotional situation and a very emotional point. It was on the night which we were leaving Kamal Adwan Hospital. At this night, the medical personnel there, they were really sad. They were really worried that we are going to leave them because they were seeking protection in our presence as an international team, and in not being a hospital as a place which is by international law protected. And they were seeking shots and they were seeking protection in our presence and in not being in a hospital which is by international law protected and should be protected. And this makes me really a lot of questions, how it would be the incredibility of the international law and the incredibility of the human rights after this conflict. Thank you very much for having me, and just wanted to focus on these 4 spots. Thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing these very disturbing testimonies. I myself have covered a few of the stories. Actually, I did cover in my reporting about Kamal Adwan Hospital and cases of malnutrition around the time that you were there, and not many were. So I'm really satisfied that I at least got to do that. And I also did another report on the lack of medical equipment, especially when it comes to amputations with children. There was a case of a 7-year-old child, and the doctor that we interviewed said that he had been using, because there were no drills in Gaza, he had been using car mechanic drills to carry out amputations. That's how desperate the situation is, and I think that that should also be noted for the record, that that's how bad things are. Thank you very much.
Something to that. Like, the thing is, if it's possible to make a surgery, which is a huge act was in Gaza at that time, the patient would not survive if you don't have an adequate intensive care and antibiotics and all the follow-ups. And in the time in Kamal Adwan, there was a huge lack of these medications. So even if you make the operation perfectly, the patient would still die out of the consequences of a lack of antibiotics and all the other medications.
And my case study did die. She did die after the surgery. It was very tragic. Thank you so much, everyone. Well, let's hope that your testimonies are noted and the politicians listen and we see positive change. And thank you all for coming. We're now going to follow this with a press conference. So thank you for making the time to be here today. Thank you very much.
Minutes. So,
sorry for that.
Doctors and patients is a universal duty. Any assault upon them is an assault on humanity itself. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Mahmoud. I would just like to conclude my remarks from Prof. Minard about the declaration. You have read the declaration, and I believe you have signed it as well.
I have indeed.
So, yeah, we want to hear from you. What do you think?
Together and spreading it far and wide. I agree with everything you said. But I want to point out that our medical institutions, our academic institutions, should be deeply ashamed of themselves for not doing this themselves, for not taking a lead in this matter. I'm sure it's the same in the rest of Europe. I'm sure there are some honourable exceptions. In my country, our colleges, our associations, our unions have been shamefully silent, and they should be taking a lead on declarations such as this. And you talk in it quite correctly of accountability, and there needs to be accountability in years to come for those who've not only perpetrated these war crimes, but those who've been silent as well. And I think that in that category should be many of our academic and medical institutions. So I really, really applaud what you've done with Palmet, and I think we should send this far and wide to get it signed by as many people. But thank you so much for leading on that.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Dr. Minard, for this, golden words in the end. And I would like to thank everybody and invite you all to join us in the vigil. It is in about 25 minutes, just very near from here. I think it's 8 minutes long. Thank you very much for everybody who attended today and the people who are following us online. Thank you.